She didn't look like someone fighting for her freedom. She looked straight at the judge, chin up, eyes steady, almost smiling, like she truly believed this was just a bad day she would walk away from. In her mind, court would end. She'd go outside, get in a car, and grab dinner with friends. 17-year-old Mackenzie Shirilla had convinced herself she could escape what happened on that road in Strongsville, Ohio. Her lawyers called her a broken girl, a heartbroken teenager who made a mistake. They said she had brain injuries, that she couldn't remember the crash. Just lights, sirens, fear. For a while, it felt like the courtroom wanted to believe them. People were quiet. The defense was working. And then the prosecutor pressed play. The lights went down. The video came up. The whole room went silent. On that grainy footage, you don't see panic. You don't see someone fighting to stop the car. You see a Toyota Camry slowly turning onto a side street and then speeding up into a straight, violent hit. No brakes, no turn, no sign of trying to get away. Just a 3,500-pound car slamming into a brick building. The crash that killed 20-year-old Dominic Russo and 19-year-old Davion Flanagan was right there in front of everyone. Their families watched it. The judge watched it. Mackenzie watched it. The video, plus the car's black box data, told a simple story. This was no mystery, no foggy memory, no harmless accident. In that moment, the story she'd been holding on to fell apart. She wasn't going home, not that night, and not for many years. What makes this case so disturbing is that on the outside, Mackenzie looked like any other suburban teen. She took selfies, made TikToks, posted cute videos with her boyfriend, and drove through quiet Ohio streets like millions of other kids her age. But in the early hours of July 31st, 2022, prosecutors say she made a clear, deadly choice. One that turned a normal car into a weapon and an empty business park into a crime scene. Investigators later called it planned, not careless, murder, not mistake. And the more you look at that video, that data, and that relationship, the harder it is to see this as just a teenage accident. And the easier it is to feel the chill of what really happened that night. Welcome to Detective Rex. If you're new here, thank you for choosing to spend your time with us. And if you've been watching our documentaries for a while, we appreciate you more than you know. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. It helps this channel grow, it helps us keep bringing you stories that matter, and it makes sure you never miss an episode. Before their names were read out in a courtroom, Dominic Russo and Davion Flanagan were just two young men from Strongsville trying to figure out adulthood. Dominic, at 20, was already on his way to being the kind of young man people bragged about. He'd graduated from Strongsville High School, started small businesses, including a clothing line, and was known for his mix of confidence and goofiness. He was the sort of guy who could walk into a room and make everyone feel like they'd known him for years. His family remembers him as a doting uncle, kneeling on living room floors to play with nieces and nephews, sending them videos, promising trips he'll now never take them on. Davion, 19, had his own journey. Adopted at 8 years old out of a difficult biological home, he grew up in a family that chose him on purpose. He played sports, cut hair for friends, and dreamed about building a future as a barber. After his death, his family would create a scholarship for aspiring barbers in his name so that his dream helps someone else's come true. Both families described their sons the same way. Loud laughs, big plans, the kind of boys you assume will be at every holiday from here on out. Their loss isn't just two names on a charge sheet. It's empty chairs at Sunday dinners, phones that never light up again, and a future that stops in the middle of a sentence. Mackenzie Shirilla was born in August 2004 and raised in Strongsville by her parents, Natalie and Steve. She was a local kid from a stable, suburban background, no criminal record, no long history with law enforcement. To many adults in her orbit, she looked like what you'd expect from a high school senior, social, image-conscious, planning life after graduation. At Strongsville High School, classmates say she leaned into being a mean girl archetype, openly a fan of Regina George from Mean Girls, sometimes imitating the character's style and attitude. She built a following on TikTok, posting lifestyle clips, outfits, and short, punchy videos. Companies sent her free products to review. On social media, life looked filtered, curated, and under control. Behind that online presence, people close to her say there was another side. Intense in relationships, possessive when she felt someone slipping away, quick to anger, quick to cool down, quick to post again. It wasn't a life that screamed future murderer. It was a life that looked from the outside like a lot of American teenagers, until you listened to the way she talked about conflict and the way she drove when she was angry. Mackenzie met Dominic Russo in high school. He was older, already popular in his own right, ambitious, with businesses and plans that made him feel like he was 10 steps ahead of a typical kid his age. Their relationship grew fast and intense. By the time she was 17 and he was 20, they'd been involved for around 4 years, broken up and gotten back together multiple times, and had moved in together into one of the Russo family's homes. To friends, they could look like a picture-perfect TikTok couple. Matching outfits, inside jokes, his arm around her at parties, her posing on his shoulder for prom photos. But to the adults watching closely, the cracks were hard to ignore. Dominic's mother, Christine, later described the previous 6 months as tense. Constant arguments, threats, and a growing sense that Mackenzie was more possessive of her son. One night in July 2022, just weeks before the crash, Dominic called his mother, sounding distressed. She sent a family friend, Christopher Martin, to pick him up. As Martin arrived, he later testified that he heard Mackenzie say, "I'm going to wreck this car right now," and saw her swinging her hands at Dominic as he tried to get out of the vehicle. In another recording from that same month, Mackenzie is heard threatening to break into Dominic's house. It's one of
A
several
former
moments that, in hindsight, sounded less like idle teenage drama and more like warning shots. Still, the relationship continued. They kept seeing each other, kept posting, kept driving the same roads together. No one knew that some of those roads would soon matter a lot. Saturday, July 30, 2002, it's the kind of night that feels routine in a suburban summer. Parties, music, friends coming and going. Around 10:15 p.m., Mackenzie, Dominic, and their friend Davian Flanagan arrive at a graduation party at the home of one of Mackenzie's friends, Kelly Vraja. They stay less than an hour. No one reports a screaming fight, no broken glass, no obvious blow-up. From the outside, they look like any trio of young adults wrapping up a long day. Around 11 o'clock p.m., they head to another friend's house, Paul Burlinghouse. Inside, people listen to music, some smoke marijuana. Paul later testifies that everything seemed fine between Mackenzie and Dominic while he was awake. Sometime around midnight, he goes to sleep, leaving them and a few others still hanging out. The hours between midnight and 5 o'clock a.m. are the kind of gap that, in a normal life, would never be scrutinized. But in this case, every minute will eventually be diagrammed in court. Phone data later shows that the trio leaves the house around 5:30 a.m. Outside, Strongsville is quiet. This is an industrial area, warehouses, parking lots, low brick buildings, almost empty at that hour. It's the kind of place where you can drive fast and not see another car for blocks. For most people, that detail would be irrelevant. For prosecutors, it became part of the story. There is no video from inside the Camry. No audio of the final conversation between these three. What we know comes from the data and the history between them. According to investigators and court filings, Dominic had been considering ending the relationship for good. His family believed this night was part of that slow pull-away. One more party, one more ride home, with a breakup on the horizon. What exactly is said in that car will never be fully known. But prosecutors argue that the tension that had shown up in July, fights, threats, "I'm going to wreck this car right now," was back. Only this time, they say, it wasn't a threat tossed out in anger. It was a decision. The car approaches Progress Drive, a road cutting through a business park. Surveillance footage later shows the Camry make a slow, controlled right turn. The blinker is on. There is nothing erratic in that moment. And then, in less than a minute, something changes. The second camera catches the car again. No blinker this time, no headlight glow, just speed. The Camry cuts through the frame like a projectile, heading straight toward a large brick building that has no guardrail, no barrier, nothing to stop what happens next. In that tiny window of time, if the prosecution is right, the confrontation is not a shouted insult in a parking lot. It's a choice made with both feet and both hands. Gas, not brake, forward, not away. The exact mechanics of the last seconds come from the car's event data recorder, the so-called black box, and the damage pattern. In the final seconds before impact, the accelerator pedal is pressed all the way down. The brake pedal is never touched. The car reaches speeds of 100+ miles per hour. There is a sharp steering input to the right just before impact. Investigators later find Mackenzie's fuzzy slipper jammed near the gas pedal. A defense theory suggests maybe the shoe accidentally trapped the accelerator, but the mechanical expert, Mark Sargent, testifies that the slipper could not have caused unintended acceleration in the way the data shows. It got caught during the crash, not before it. The Camry hits the brick wall of a building in the Progress Drive Business Park with such force that responding officers later say the crash is one of the worst they've ever seen. One notes on body cam that the car looks split in two. Inside, Dominic Russo, in the front passenger seat, suffers catastrophic injuries. Davion Flanagan, in the back, is also fatally hurt. Mackenzie is found unconscious. Her foot still on or near the accelerator. There is no fight after the crash, no last words from Dominic or Davion. By the time help arrives, their lives are already over. It takes roughly 45 minutes for anyone to find the wreck. At that hour, in that location, there are no commuters, no dog walkers, no early morning joggers. A passerby in the area finally spots the mangled car and calls 911. On the 911 call, there is confusion. What is this? How many people? Is anyone moving? Dispatchers send Strongsville police and emergency services. First responders arrive to find the car crumpled into the building, all three occupants unconscious and not breathing. Glass, debris, and twisted metal spread across the pavement. Paramedics work quickly. They assess Dominic and Davion, but there's nothing to be done. Both are pronounced dead at the scene. Mackenzie is seriously injured. She has multiple fractures and internal injuries. She's airlifted to Metro Health Hospital in Cleveland, where she undergoes surgeries and begins a long recovery. For Dominic's and Davion's families, that morning phone call is the kind every parent fears but never really believes will come. There's been an accident. They didn't make it. At first, investigators look at this like a tragic crash. Maybe speeding, maybe impairment, maybe a bad decision after a long night out. Strongsville police collect evidence from the scene, the crushed Camry. Mackenzie's phone, psilocybin mushrooms, and a digital scale found with her belongings. Mechanical experts inspect the vehicle. They check the steering, the brakes, the throttle. The report, no mechanical defects that would explain a sudden loss of control. Then detectives pull the event data recorder, the black box. It tells a story that looks nothing like a driver panicking and hitting the wrong pedal, or a car failing on its own. It shows deliberate acceleration and no braking right up to impact. At the same time, they start talking to people who know the trio. Friends from the party, Dominic's and Davion's families, Mackenzie's circle. They learn about the long and unstable relationship, about the July incident where she allegedly threatened to wreck this car right now, about video of her threatening to break into Dominic's house. They also look at phone and GPS data. It appears Mackenzie's phone had been in the same industrial area on Progress Drive days before the crash, suggesting she may have driven that route in advance. Investigators and prosecutors will later describe this as scouting, a way to find a place where, at 5:30 a.m., almost no one would be around. All of this moves the case from traffic to homicide. On November 4th, 2022, shortly after she's discharged from the hospital, officers arrive to arrest Mackenzie. Body cam footage later shows her crying as she's told she's under arrest for 2 counts of aggravated murder along with other charges. In the patrol car, she alternates between tears and an eerie sort of calm, closing her eyes as if bracing for whatever comes next. Prosecutors don't hold back. Mackenzie is eventually charged with 4 counts of murder, 4 counts of felonious assault, 2 counts of aggravated vehicular homicide, 1 count of drug possession, 1 count of possessing criminal tools. At arraignment, she appears in court in a jail jumpsuit, much smaller than the person her social media once projected. The charges are read. Each one ties her name to the deaths of Dominic Russo and Davion Flanagan. She pleads not guilty. Bond is set high. Reports mention a $500,000 bond. For the families of Dominic and Davion, there's a quiet tension. On one hand, she's alive and still has a future, even if it's uncertain. On the other, their sons are gone forever. Seeing her in court, even in shackles, is not justice. It's just the beginning. Mackenzie's lawyer makes a strategic decision. He waives a jury and opts for a bench trial, putting her fate directly in the hands of Judge Nancy Margaret Russo. Prosecutors argue this was not an accident. The black box data shows full throttle, no brakes, controlled steering. The CCTV footage shows a slow, normal turn followed by a deliberate, high-speed run straight into a building. Witnesses describe Mackenzie's earlier threats, including, "I'm going to wreck this car right now." GPS data suggests she had driven that route days earlier, scoping out a place where a crash would likely be unwitnessed at 5:30 a.m. They frame this as a form of murder-suicide gone incomplete. A girl who couldn't handle losing her boyfriend and decided that if she couldn't have him, no one would. Her friend, Davion, they say, was treated like cargo, someone whose life was collateral. They also point to Mackenzie's behavior after the crash, posting TikToks from the hospital, including one where she says she's one of those girls that can do a lot of drugs and not die, going to a concert in a wheelchair, later dancing in a Halloween video with someone made up to look like a corpse. To the prosecution, this isn't just bad taste. It's lack of remorse. The defense offers a very different explanation. They say she lost consciousness before the crash, possibly due to a medical event. They suggest the slipper near the pedal could have contributed to unintended acceleration. They emphasize her age, 17, injured, traumatized, unable to remember the crash. They highlight that she publicly mourned Dominic online, calling him her soulmate, posting tributes to his smile and laugh. In 2025, her parents would later say they consulted a neurologist who believed some of the evidence was consistent with a loss of consciousness. But in the courtroom, that theory has to compete with hard data and video. The true turning point is the surveillance footage combined with the black box. When Judge Russo watches that 1-minute sequence, slow turn, then a straight 100 mph sprint into a wall, she later says it's the kind of evidence you cannot unsee. In her words, she had a mission and she executed it with precision. The mission was death. From that moment on, the technical explanations start to sound thin compared to what the video and the data show. The trial in August 2023 draws heavy local and national attention. Families fill the benches, cameras capture every reaction. The courtroom hears emotional testimony from friends about the night before the crash, technical breakdowns from mechanical experts and crash reconstructionists, accounts of the couple's rocky relationship, and Mackenzie's prior threats. Mackenzie does not take the stand. Her lawyers keep her at the defense table, sometimes taking notes, sometimes staring ahead, sometimes quietly crying. Because it's a bench trial, there is no jury filing back in. Instead, everyone stands as Judge Russo returns to the bench and begins delivering a long, careful ruling. She walks through the evidence, the speed, the lack of braking, the prior threats, the scouting of the route, the social media behavior. She rejects the idea that this was simply reckless driving. This was not reckless driving, she says. This was murder. On August 14, 2023, the judge finds Mackenzie guilty on all 12 felony counts, including multiple counts of murder and aggravated vehicular homicide. In the Russo and Flanagan families' rows, there are tears, not of relief exactly, but of recognition. The court has finally called what happened to their sons by the word they've used privately from the beginning: killing. A week later, on August 21, 2023, everyone returns for sentencing. The room feels even heavier than before. This is not about guilty or not guilty anymore. It's about how many years and what that number says about the value of 2 young lives. The prosecution argues for a long sentence. They stress the deliberate nature of the act, the terror. Dominic and Davion must have felt in those final seconds the need to send a message about using a car as an instrument of murder. Davion's sister, Davine, stands and speaks directly about her brother and the hole left in her family's life. She asks the court to give Mackenzie the longest possible sentence, saying she's watched Mackenzie choose the easy way out before and doesn't trust that she has changed. Christine Russo, Dominic's mother, also addresses the court. She tells Mackenzie that going to prison is something she should, in a way, be thankful for, because she's still alive to have a future, whatever it looks like. Dominic and Davion no longer do. When it's her turn, Mackenzie stands, voice shaking, and gives a brief statement. She says she's deeply sorry, that she would never hurt Dominic or Davion on purpose, that she wishes she could remember what happened. She calls Dominic her soulmate, says they were all friends. For some, it sounds sincere. For others, it's too late and too small compared to the broken lives in front of her. Judge Russo sentences her to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 15 years, effectively 2 life sentences for each victim, served concurrently. She also permanently revokes Mackenzie's driver's license. No one leaves that courtroom whole. The victims' families don't get their sons back. Mackenzie's family watches their daughter led away in handcuffs, knowing she will be nearly middle-aged before she even has a chance at parole. At its core, this case is brutally simple and incredibly complicated at the same time. 2 young men, Dominic Russo and Davion Flanagan, are dead. A third young person, Mackenzie Sharilla, will spend most of her youth behind bars. 3 futures ended or frozen in a single minute of acceleration. For a US audience used to thinking about guns and knives when we talk about murder, this case forces a different question. What happens when the weapon is something we use every day? A car, a road, a moment of rage, fear, or control on an empty street before sunrise. It also asks deeper questions about teenage relationships and the way social media can hide serious problems behind smiling photos and polished clips. How do we recognize the difference between ordinary drama and dangerous obsession? How seriously should we take those sentences that start as threats, "I'm going to wreck this car," when they come from someone young, upset, and in love? The law did what it could here. It looked at the data, the video, the history, and called this what the evidence showed: murder. But no verdict can restore what was lost. 1 life ends on a brick wall. 2 families spend their days visiting cemeteries instead of college campuses and barbershops. Another family schedules prison visits instead of graduations. If stories like this make you think twice about how fast emotions can turn a car, a text, or a choice into something you can't undo, and you want to follow more real cases where law, youth, and split-second decisions collide, you can stick with this channel and join us for the next story.